Hey, Graham says he's going to put an end to this, vote on it, and the nation needs a break from this impeachment. I couldn't agree more. But he also talks about no one looking at the Ukraine thing deep enough, uh, which is a big problem.
With the Russians. 2 years later, I'm good to go. Somebody other than me looked at the Trump campaign. Nobody has looked at what's happened in the Ukraine. So in 2014, Joe Biden's given the Ukraine portfolio by President Trump. It's a notoriously corrupt place. Within a month of being given the Ukrainian portfolio, the vice president's son is hired by Burisma, one of the most corrupt companies in the Ukraine, at a fairly exorbitant salary. They also, Burisma, hires John Kerry's stepson, and on and on and on. The point is that the prosecutor, who I think was corrupt, opened up a case in May of 2014 against Burisma, raided the president's home, Burisma's president's home, in February of 2016, and 6 weeks later, 7 weeks later, was fired. In 2015, the president of Burisma, Zolcheka, was named by our ambassador as somebody the Ukrainian prosecutor should look at for corruption. The person who followed the fired prosecutor dropped the case against Burisma. I don't know. Doesn't pass the smell test to me. Why are you paying Hunter Biden? You can say they're corrupt, but they're not stupid. Does it make sense to hire the son of the guy in charge of the portfolio for the American government? And from the time they raided the president's home, Joe Biden called the president of the Ukraine 4 times, got on a plane, and said, if you don't fire this guy, you don't get the $1 billion. I love Joe Biden, but I can tell you, if the name was Trump, there'd be a lot of questions asked. So what I want out of all this, I want the public to understand that the claims they're making that there's no there in Biden's, nobody's looked, somebody should, and I've looked, and I've got a lot of questions. Were they buying insurance by hiring Hunter Biden? Because they sure as hell wasn't buying expertise.
Can we ask you about the case that you heard
yes,
there? Chuck Schumer,
I will.
Chuck Schumer today said, it may have planted the first seed in their minds that perhaps the president did something very wrong here. Was that seed planted in your mind or in any other Republicans' minds?
So let's hear from what the other side says. Did they selectively take testimony of witnesses to tell a story, which I thought was well told? Will it stand up? So they got caught. That's why they released the funds. The problem with cases like this is all of us are involved in this issue. So when they froze funds to the Ukraine, I was convinced by people at the Department of Defense that one of the reasons we want to take a time out is we've got a newly elected president we don't know anything about. I was told that by DOD. Now, as you fast forward, they're making the argument that Donald Trump's temporary freeze of funds caused the Ukrainian army to collapse and people die. Nothing could be further from the truth. They got more aid from the Trump administration, the Obama administration, and when you look at what people were saying on the ground, they had capability they never had before. So on September the 10th or the 11th, I called the White House and said, I'm okay with this guy. I'm going to vote with Durbin at the Appropriations Committee to make sure the aid flows for the rest of 2019. Rob Portman called the same day. It's pretty clear to me that when Rob called and I was going to join forces with Durbin, they were going to lose a vote. Now that's a theory of why the aid was released that I know about that you didn't hear. So the point is, let's see what the other side says, then we'll make our decision about what the president actually did or didn't do. Now you asked me about why I laughed, when the president's on the video. If he thought he was doing something wrong, he would probably shut up about it. In October, he's saying somebody needs to be looking at the Bidens. He told me that yesterday. The president believes that what happened in the Ukraine with the Bidens was inappropriate. Now, whether or not that will withstand scrutiny, I don't know. The president believes that the Ukraine interfered in our election. I can tell you without any doubt, it was the Russians who hacked into the DNC. It was not the Ukrainians. I cannot say that there was nobody in the Ukraine that had worked with Manafort that did a number on him. I don't know. All I can tell you is that from the president's point of view, he did nothing wrong in his mind, and end with this thought. If you're in a prior administration, does that mean no one can ever look at you? If you're going to be a potential opponent, does that mean your family can do anything?
That's the key question. Both with Obama, both with Hillary, both with the Bidens. Anyway.
I don't buy that as a construct.
Do you want to push to hear Hunter Biden? Do you want to push to hear Joe Biden?
Here's what I want. I'm going to make my vote based on the evidence assembled. I have said consistently I'm not going to grant witness requests by the defense. They could have called all of these people if they'd wanted them in the House. They denied the president his day in court, and I'm not going to legitimize that. There are a bunch of people on my side who want to call Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. I want to end this thing sooner rather than later. I don't want to turn it into a circus. I think Schumer said yesterday we're not willing to trade Joe Biden for anybody. I think I know why. I want the American people to pick the next president, not me. And so what I think is the best thing to happen is to have oversight of Ukrainian potential misconduct and move on to the election. I am not going to use my vote to extend the trial.
Republicans have said they heard nothing new. Republicans have said they heard nothing new in the...
I'm not going to extend my vote, or I'm not going to vote to extend the trial. So Graham wants to end this trial. He wants to end it, not extend it, not bring on witnesses. We'll see what happens. He says here in a moment that the nation needs a break from this, and I think he's absolutely right.
The opening arguments.
Well,
why not allow for new information, new evidence, and witnesses?
I think they say they've got enough to make their case. So hearing from John Bolton, this national security advisor of the president, they chose not to seek him. I would argue that if I were president and you wanted to call my national security advisor, I would be probably invoke privilege. But the one thing I can tell you is that we don't want to start a process where you can do impeachment in the House in 48 days, shut legal issues off and dump them into the lap of the Senate and deal out the courts. I'm not going to do that. There'll be presidents after Trump, and I did support a 2-year inquiry into the president. He turned over 1 million documents to the Mueller folks, and his lawyer testified. I guess what I'm saying is I thought that would be the end of this. What they did in the House has been partisan from day one. 48 days, no ability to have a lawyer. Most of the evidence is hearsay, no ability to call witnesses. And now you want me to fix that by destroying privilege. I'm not going to do it. And Republicans now are on a pretty hard push to call Schiff because these stories about the whistleblower, that somebody on his staff actually coached a whistleblower. I'm not going to do that here. The country needs a break from this. We're going to listen to the case, see what the other side says about what was said yesterday, then I'm going to vote. That's what I'm going to do with my vote. And if you think there's a whistleblower problem, we can deal with that outside impeachment.
All right, so I'm going to leave it there. He says he's going to vote after he hears the instance. He wants evidence. He wants to end this, not extend it. Doesn't want to call witnesses. Wants to get this over. The nation needs a break from this. We'll see what happens. It's Roger Martin from Billings, Montana. Good day.